What you tolerate always ends up settling in. Not all at once, not violently, but slowly, silently. At first, it's words that hurt you. Words that stay in your mind longer than you want to admit. Behaviors that make you uncomfortable and that you minimize. Looks, small remarks, gestures that make you feel something isn't right. Uncomfortable situations you let last because you tell yourself it will pass, because you want to avoid conflict, because you want to keep the peace. And without realizing it, you open a door. At the beginning, you tell yourself it's not a big deal. You say it's nothing, that it's just the way they speak, that they didn't mean any harm. You excuse it. You rationalize it. You minimize it. And sometimes you go even further. You convince yourself that you should make an effort too, that you'll adapt, that you're strong, that you can handle it. So you tolerate. You tolerate people who cross your boundaries. You tolerate disrespect disguised as humor, and you still smile. You tolerate a job that drains you, a pace that slowly puts your light out, because you believe you have no choice. You tolerate a relationship that makes you doubt yourself, one where you feel too much or not enough, that you excuse out of love or fear of being alone. And every time you tolerate, you think you're in control. But in reality, you're teaching your heart to make room for what hurts it. And sometimes, let's be honest, it's not even that you accept it because you want to. It's that in the moment, you didn't know how to react. You froze. You were afraid of doing too much, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of being dramatic. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. So afterward, you replay the scene in your head. You tell yourself you should have answered differently, that you should have said no, that you should have stood up for yourself. But instead of helping you, it exhausts you. Because while you're replaying the scene, the situation keeps going. And over time, by tolerating too much, you start to change. You become harder, sharper, more defensive. Not because you want to be that way, but because you no longer feel safe. You become quieter. You speak less. You explain less. You swallow it. You endure it. You pretend everything is fine. And little by little, you become less yourself. What you tolerate pushes you to become someone you are not. You start watching your words, walking on eggshells. You ask yourself how you need to be so that things go smoothly. And that's serious. Because at that point, you're no longer living. You're adapting. You move away from your values just to survive what you keep accepting. You make compromises that cost you dearly. Not necessarily in money, not necessarily in time, but in inner peace. And when inner peace leaves, everything becomes heavy. One day, without warning, you look at yourself and you no longer recognize who you are. You tell yourself you don't know what's wrong, but you're exhausted. Not physically tired, internally drained, because you pretended too much, swallowed too much, tolerated too much. And the truth is, it's not that you changed. It's that you allowed things to settle where they never should have entered. You confused patience with self-erasure. You confused love with sacrifice. You confused maturity with silence. And you called that being strong. You tolerated too much, for too long, too often, without choosing yourself. And no one forced you. You just believed that forgetting yourself was the price to pay to keep the peace. But setting boundaries is not being mean. It's not being cold. It's not being selfish. It's protecting yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They are markers. They show how far someone can go with you. And those who respect you will not be offended by your boundaries. They'll feel reassured because they'll know how to love you properly. And those who make you feel guilty when you set a boundary do not love you. They loved the access they had to you when you stayed silent, and that is not love. You are not too demanding. You are learning to respect yourself. You are not too sensitive. You are attentive to yourself. You're not asking for too much. You're simply refusing to lose yourself again. Yes, setting boundaries may cost you people, but not setting them will cost you yourself. And that is a price you can no longer afford. So if you recognize yourself in this, don't look for the perfect words. Don't replay the scenes in your head. The real question is not, what should I have said? The real question is, what am I no longer willing to accept? Because a boundary is not a speech. It's not a long explanation. It's an inner decision. And when you truly make that decision, you hardly need to speak anymore. You change your position, your energy, your presence. And what does not respect you can no longer stay. Over time, what you keep accepting becomes normal. So choose carefully what you allow to remain in your life. Because you deserve relationships that respect you, a job that doesn't crush you, and a life where you don't have to betray yourself just to survive. At some point, you have to stop trying to understand everyone else and start listening to yourself. What bothers you is not random. What drains you is not insignificant. Setting a boundary is not rejection. It's honoring what is right for you. And when you truly respect yourself, you no longer need to fight or convince anyone. Once again, what you tolerate always ends up settling in. And what you respect within yourself becomes your new foundation. So ask yourself, what are you still allowing in your life that is costing you too much? If this kind of message speaks to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.